Hurricane Maria barreled through St. Croix overnight before roaring ashore in Puerto Rico. The only noise we hear right now in San Juan is coming from generators. That's the only lifeline these people have. Power is cut. There's no way to communicate.
The outage creating gridlock. Transit workers helping passengers off a stalled train, cars lining up at gas stations.
A hurricane's damage offers a glimpse of what could be in store for the U.S. power grid should an adversary conduct a successful cyber or electromagnetic pulse attack. A recent study by global insurance markets of Lloyd's of London determined that such an attack on the U.S. mainland would dwarf what happened in Puerto Rico. It could trigger substantial deaths and economic damage totaling upwards of $1 trillion. The threats are real, evolving, and becoming more complex. As just one example, the FBI and Department of Homeland Security recently advised power companies to harden their systems against ongoing cyber intrusions from the Russian government. But the advisory pointed to a major problem in how this country is approaching grid security. Its suggestions that companies take voluntary steps to prevent intrusion shows a lack of leadership and accountability in federal regulatory authority and the power industry towards protecting the grid from attack.
We now know, as a matter of public record, that Russia has cyber tools embedded in the U.S. electrical grid and in other areas, to include in our nuclear power plants, which shows the ability to scale this potentially to a pretty high level.
Utilities aren't required to follow the rules. And if they try to be compliant, it will take a serious investment of time and money that would be diverted from other things, like routine maintenance, preparing for the next hurricane, or upgrading equipment. The government's advisory, meanwhile, is a response to malicious activity that has already been discovered. Successful attacks may instead come from threats we didn't see coming. So, with reactive, voluntary, and incomplete measures for grid defense, what can we do to effectively plan for and protect against an EMP or cyber attack? Congress needs to act in order to clarify who's in charge of protecting the power grid. National security challenges demand national solutions. Concerned citizens should contact their politicians. Tell them to support state and federal legislation that requires the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to better protect the electrical grid from physical, cyber, and EMP threats. Meanwhile, the industry and government should work together to develop, test, and deploy technologies that better protect the grid's most critical components. Power companies should expand their mutual assistance agreements and stockpile greater numbers of key components that would be damaged in an attack. They should also standardize parts to make repairs faster and cheaper. Congress can help fund these preparations, which can be paid back over time through rebates, small customer rate increases, or adoption of a utility customer security tax. State and local governments should ease regulatory burdens and support community readiness. And for families, it's important to develop a plan for several weeks of self-sufficiency. Stockpile enough food, water, emergency supplies, and medicine. Get a good manual water filter and a battery-powered radio. Make sure authorities know if you need power for medical equipment or for evacuation assistance. Learn how to prepare for a disaster by going to ready.gov and get involved by going to impactamerica.org. To ensure a continuous supply of electricity, even when our adversaries want to turn off the lights, we all need to plan, prepare, and act. Demand that the government and power industry do more to safeguard our critical power infrastructure.